On today's episode, we're going to be criticizing one of the most famous JoJo YouTubers on the site, Shuckmeister, and also his case on how Netflix rushed the first 12 episodes of the recent Stone Ocean adaptation. Now, before we get into this argument, I just want to clarify that his arguments against the Stone Ocean adaptation are completely different from his arguments of his two videos about the Stone Ocean manga. Now, there are a few things that me and Shuckmeister both have in common. We both love to do stop-motion animation. We both are taking college at the moment. Oh yeah, I forgot. We obviously love JoJo. Okay, but for those people who really don't know who Shuckmeister is, he is basically most famous for creating the Araki Forgot Moments video, and he is most well known for his stand signs video. It's kind of like the equivalent of MatPat's game theory videos if MatPat were to only create JoJo content. So to give you guys a little bit of context about why I'm making this video, a couple of months ago, Shuckmeister actually made his video about reviewing the first 12 episodes of Stone Ocean. And as the thumbnail suggests, this is obviously not just a review of the first 12 episodes of the Stone Ocean anime, but it's also a case video where Shuckmeister is trying to prove how Netflix rushed the Stone Ocean anime in a negative manner. Now, when watching the video, there are some pretty good points that he brought up in the video as to how the first 12 episodes are rushed. And there are a couple of few where I could say, well, it really doesn't really affect it that much. And you know what? I actually respect the hustle for trying to expose productions that have been rushed and that they need to take time. Which obviously, let's be fair, like if any project feels like it should give it more time, just basically delay it so that the animators could give us some quality animation and not end up like 7 deadly frames over there. And before we get into the parts that I really disagree with, what I'm going to do first is that I'm actually going to be acknowledging the points that he made in this video that I actually agree with, and then I'll get to the stuff where I genuinely disagree with, or they could have been explained a little bit better. Lucky! So, the first argument that I want to touch on where I could genuinely agree with him, but, you know, I could care less on, is the fact that the anime sort of overuses Jolene's theme.
And my suspicion of a rushed release schedule only grew further because of the overuse of Jolene's theme. It feels like it tried to do what Giorno's theme did, but not as well or differently in its own sort of style. But what made Giorno's and Josuke's and Jotaro's themes special is that they were exclusively reserved for climactic moments in the series, not for, well, crocodile poop.
Yeah, I can kind of see it a lot. But yet again, I've seen Zack Snyder's Justice League and heard Wonder Woman's theme enchantment like a few good times in that movie. And apparently, it's been overused so much that people like to make fun of it and consider it as a meme. Her theme is basically like the Giorno Giovanna of the DCEU, if you ask me.
You're kidding me, another Amazon?
I'm not just an Amazon. I am Princess Diana from Themyscira.
Oh, even better.
Another case that I like to point out is the fact that he mentions that there are recap episodes in a Netflix exclusive series where you get 12 episodes in one single day, leaving the recap episodes to no purpose other than to fill in the runtime.
Then when you're watching the episodes, you realize, why do these episodes need recaps? Especially since there's a ton of content from the original manga missing in this adaptation, and the fact that it's on Netflix. The business model is just you watch episode, then you watch next episode. That seems like an odd choice right out of the gate.
Now, this might not be confirmed, but I think my solution is the fact that due to the Tokyo TV release, which airs like a month after the Netflix batch release, they basically put up the recap episodes before they could get in the 12-episode batch. Although, I think what argument could have been better presented is that since you already are fully aware in your, like, Stone Ocean announcement video, you would have the argument to say, I mean, if they're just gonna drop a weekly series on the month after, why did Netflix even pick it up? It's one or the other, guys. You can't do both. I mean, either I could binge watch the episode like some sort of noob that likes Netflix and chill, or I could unsubscribe to Netflix and basically go to my typical Tokyo TV channel where I could watch it for free. You could get that JoJo Fridays moment. And the final point of Shuck's case, which I genuinely agree on, is the fact that there are too many gray silhouettes. Now, these gray silhouettes can be appeared in the manga, but in Shuck's case, he mentions that these gray silhouettes are only used for certain perspectives.
Next would be the misappropriation of silhouettes in place of characters. All the surrounding characters are silhouetted except for this other female prisoner. This is used to place the audience's focus on Jolene, similar to that in the manga. But in the manga, if you look at this exact panel, these silhouettes were only used for characters out of the frame of reference. They weren't in the foreground like they are in the anime. Like, they literally nailed this choice so perfectly with Narancia versus Talking Head and Clash, because the entire crowd wasn't silhouetted during the full fight. They only became silhouettes during the climax, which really didn't matter because we were focusing on Narancia's tongue for most of it.
Which, that's a pretty good point, and yeah, I can't deny that there are too many great silhouettes, like, it just ruins, like, the perspective. It is a case of where you can definitely show that this is basically due to time constraints. Okay, now that that's all away, I want to talk about the stuff that I politely disagree with.
Missing plot points?
In Shuckmeister's video, he mentions that how he thinks the pacing is a bit off in his points, not because, of his distaste of binging all 12 episodes in one day.
I physically felt tired by episode 7, binging them all on December 1st. I just don't understand how people can actually binge like that and enjoy every aspect of the material they're watching.
But also for the fact when he saw the Hammond Beat video, he basically acknowledged it by saying that there are plot points. Now, again, the reason why he sort of put this up and not the other manga versus anime videos that Hammond Beat actually put out is simply because, unlike those other videos, which cover that entire season, which roundabout all around like 5 to 7 minutes on average, Stone Ocean's anime and manga differences is around 20 minutes long, which means a lot of stuff is cut out. Now, I did actually take the time to actually see what was actually removed or altered, and most of it was basically just random background stuff that doesn't even affect the major story whatsoever and doesn't really leave key details out too much. I kind of feel like that Shuck kind of saw like the length of the video. It's like, holy shit. That's a lot of minutes. There's a lot of plot holes that lead to bad pacing. This is like Promised Neverland Season 2 over here.
Like I said, obviously the jarring pacing from the original manga. But when Hammond Beat literally makes a 20-minute video pointing out all the differences between the manga and anime, many of these things sort of boil down to not only bad pacing, but missing plot points that are just ignored.
The next scene in the manga opens with one of the prisoners sharpening a button on the bars. This is removed in the anime, and it goes straight into the next page where Hermes starts talking to Jolene. The scene where Jolene is taken from her cell is skipped, and the anime goes straight to her meeting with her lawyer. The lawyer is now less detailed when he lists out the items. Jolene no longer makes the joke about buying caviar in prison. Jolene also no longer asks if Hermes is hiding the money in her shoes. In the manga, they originally think that they hit a goat before discovering it was a person. The anime skips this, and they realize it right away. In the manga, the judge is constantly coughing throughout the scene. This no longer happens in the anime. The anime no longer shows the lunch lady handing out boxed lunches. The anime no longer shows the other prisoners and Loco Barocco reacting to the alarm going off. In the manga, one of the prisoners tries to sell drugs to Jolene. Jolene no longer compares FF to Marilyn Monroe. Also, the line where Jolene calls FF queer is removed. In the manga, Jolene holds up Lang Wrangler's mask to the camera to make Hoochie think he's at the door.
Okay, but in all seriousness though, I do agree that there are some things that shouldn't be cut out or basically just kept in because it doesn't really affect the runtime that much. So by all means, I would like to go over some stuff that I think should have been cut out, or I think the anime should have tried to fix. The first one that I want to acknowledge is the fact that they removed key details about Jolene's origin. For example, on how she was a delinquent in high school, and that she tried to get herself back, and that she was in a biker gang. Sort of establishing her character a little bit, saying for the fact that, she was in a biker gang, to let us know of what her character was like due to her father's absence. I feel like that would have been an interesting detail. It doesn't really affect the runtime too much, and that would have been a great way to establish Jolene's character. The second thing that I want to point out, it doesn't really affect any of the characters too much. It sort of kind of bothers me a teeny bit, is that the anime sort of cut out the part where Hermes says that the young guard looks like Tom Cruise, which if you take a look at the anime, they never really said that the guy looks like Tom Cruise. And I know a lot of people are going to comment, are going to say it's probably copyrighted. I just kind of find it weird for the fact that they would not mention Tom Cruise's name, yet make a reference to Brad Pitt in the Thus Spoke Kashibe Rohan episode, The Run.
そいつちょっとしたハンサムガイだファイトクラブの
And the final change that I would like to acknowledge that affects, like, in the background continuity is the fact where they cut out the male prisoner that is actually transgender into the female ward. The reason why I mention this is because in the second episode of the Stone Ocean anime, you can actually see the transgender prisoner in the background of where all the female prisoners are standing while they're giving their introduction to the female prison ward. It's kind of weird that they would cut out to the reason why there's a guy in a prison ward only to have him as a background character for the sake of an Easter egg that manga readers could overanalyze. That's something that new rockstars would probably break down. But in all seriousness though, this does affect anime viewers at all, because if they hear that there was a female prison ward and there's a dude in the female prison ward, anime fans are just going to be confused. It's like, why is there a guy in a female prison ward? Is this another one of those Araki forgot moments? Shuck, if you're trying to mention about anime stuff that was cut out from the manga and that you feel is a bit important, mention those things, alright? Don't just simply brush it off and just say they're plot holes for the sake of it. Actually take your time and explain the details, man.
Why does your face look like bad CG?
So if you're unaware of the drama, I'll give you a brief rundown of what's happened. In early January, after Shuckmeister's Netflix Rush Stone Ocean video, he tweeted a picture about a compare and contrast between a scene from the Part 5 anime of how many CGI assets were used, comparing to a Part 6 anime scene of how many CGI assets are used, in order to further validate his point of how Netflix rushed the anime due to the fact there's so many CGI assets instead of traditional 2D animation. I will give Shuck this. I am impressed that he did actually notice CGI in the, I think in his first viewing. I mean, the only CGI asset that I noticed in this room was the fan, but that's only because it was moving. After he sent that tweet, he got a lot of backlash from the fans. Some of them were memes, some of them were genuinely just calling him a Part 6 hater, which he decides to strawman and basically antagonize in his response video.
That didn't stop some of my mutuals from completely disregarding that whole part of the argument, and instead distilling it down to Golden Wind good, Stone Ocean bad, and all CGI and anime bad.
And others saying that this is basically a false equivalence, that the scene that he took from Part 5 was an outdoor scene, and the fact that Part 6 was in an indoor scene with uses of CGI. And there was one commenter called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Sound Design actually mentioned that there's a lot of 2D backgrounds, mostly in the outdoor scenes, which devalues his point even more. And another thing for the fact is that they could have compared it to the Mr. President's room from Part 5, because that is a CGI room in the same way. But after the enormous backlash, he decided to make a response video about the acknowledgements of the tweet, and basically what his point was in the video was, in his words, due to the direction on how the CGI was used in the model.
The reason this comparison was made in the first place was based on direction, i.e. how the CG was used.
Okay, Chuck, the argument about the direction of the CGI can be valid if the majority of the fan base or the viewers that actually responded to your tweet agreed that the product in question does look like complete shit, which could be applied to the same criticisms due to the White Snake and the Lang Wrangler models that were seen in the last few episodes. And yeah, people actually genuinely noticed it, not because of the plain textures, but also due to the movements as well, because it's a literal moving Gmon model. However, that wasn't the case, as basically you don't talk about the entire CGI as a whole, but yet CGI backgrounds that weren't noticeable to the majority of your fans. And by the way, I'd like to point out, antagonizing the entire JoJo fanbase that call you out, and calling them, and I quote, reactionary mongoloids, doesn't really help your case at all, despite if you were being sarcastic. It just kind of make people sort of lose respect for you in a sense.
You guys are way too reactionary. There's no point in fighting these mongoloids. I don't live on this website, so I can easily just turn it off when I don't want to deal with it anymore.
Well, I can tolerate your acknowledgement of the fact that your comparison wasn't a really good comparison and that you shouldn't have compared burning down the house to Mr. President, considering that both of these rooms are basically interior hideouts for our main protagonists.
So I decided to compare 3 scenes. Mr. President versus burning down the house. These scenes have entirely CG backgrounds. Many people said this is a fairer comparison than the original post, which I agree to an extent if we're not comparing how motion direction was used.
This basically does contradict with your main argument as to why you genuinely dislike the burning down the house room due to the fact that there are just 2D characters in a CG room doing nothing.
For a lot of Stone Ocean, it's just standing in a place, talking.
Despite the Mr. President scenes in Part 5 are just showing us characters doing nothing in a 3D space.
See, the difference between the parts is that Golden Wind's CG director did a better job at incorporating CG elements like specified in my original post.
The Part 6 director did a lot of CGI creature models, not backgrounds. I couldn't find background models. You know, I could compare this to the like regular fights, but I don't know. Oh, but that's not all, guys. Because while Shuckmeister did acknowledge his false comparison, he made another false comparison by comparing the Stone Ocean's anime CGI to the Star Wars prequels.
You are using the same excuses people use to defend the Star Wars prequels. The Star Wars prequel movies do not hold up in terms of effects. And if you replace the word Stone Ocean with Star Wars in any of these complaints, they're identical.
No, Shuckmeister, they are not identical. Your case as to the reason why Stone Ocean has so much CGI assets because of your point about Netflix rushing the production due to strict deadlines. The Star Wars prequels use CGI because CGI was becoming a common thing around the era where The Phantom Menace was released, and George Lucas, like many other directors, need to learn to adapt to this new kind of technology. And as to your argument as to why the CGI looks a bit low res, that's simple. It's a product of its time. Directors and filmmakers are really getting used to this new technology that they are trying to adapt. Because obviously they can't use like realistic props, because if they're trying to bring some campy stuff into where we are today, it's basically just gonna become cringe as hell. Hey. And as of the defense of the prequels, I know this is a bit off topic, but Star Wars fans don't defend the prequels simply because,
oh, CGI holds up, CGI pretty good.
Not that I actually heard of the argument myself. It's actually more to that.
To sum it up in a nutshell, the very hatred against the prequels was directed at large part to the original creator based on story decisions he had made, editing decisions he had made, or merchandising decisions he had made, which is perfectly within his right as a creator. And it's unreasonable to think that his actions as a creator should be dictated by a minority of unsatisfied fans.
Lucas making the prequels the way he wanted turned out to be shit because it didn't look, sound, act, or feel even remotely like the originals.
In regards to the prequels, you can't tell a creator how they, quote, should create their own product.
Star Wars should be simple. We just saw Han Solo talking like a... Star Wars should be simple.
Star Wars should be simple.
Oh, and before I end on this topic, I just want to point out of his subtle jab to Mappa's CGI on Attack on Titan, like if it was late 2020.
I know people want to talk themselves into thinking the CG character models from Attack on Titan Season 4 look good, but they are high on copium. Attack on Titan was an obvious downgrade when the production shifted from Wit Studio for Seasons 1 through 3 to Mappa for Season 4, hence why I stopped watching in Season 4.
Yeah, you know what? Fuck it. I honestly agree with Shuckmeister here. Mappa sort of ruined Attack on Titan because of all the CGI Titans in Attack on Titan. We all know for a fact that Witch Studio would never, and I mean ever, do CGI on their Titans if necessary. They would never even do it. Not even a single thought. Not only that, Mappa couldn't even make good Sakuga into the animes they adapted. Nor would they ever even hold a candle on what Witch Studios would have did with their beautiful animation. They would never even try to at least remotely be on the same level. Yeah, you know what? Shuckmeister made his point. Fuck Mappa.
Stone Ocean is dead. Netflix isn't uploading the second batch until the fall, so it is obviously dead.
You know, during this past 3 months, even after the announcement of the second batch of the 12 episodes, I feel like the entire JoJo community sort of put, like, the 12-episode batch in, like, this high pedestal, saying that it completely ruined the anime, even though the anime isn't really terrible itself, and Netflix didn't even deviate the source material.
That is beyond dumb, and it's kind of fucking hilarious that Netflix has fucked this up so badly, like, way worse than I could have ever imagined.
Netflix has ruined JoJo.
Netflix cannot get anything right. Fucking JoJo's Part 6 has been divided up into like part releases where they released 12 episodes a few months back and they still haven't released the next set of episodes for some inexplicable fucking reason, and they have the audacity to hype up, hey, good news, JoJo's Part 6 Part 2 might come out in 2022.
Are you dead?
Just a disclaimer, this isn't really a defense on Netflix. I am fully aware about Netflix's recent contradictions, like for the fact that Netflix raises the price on their subscriptions, canceling upcoming projects such as the Bone animated series in favor of more Boss Baby spin-offs. But nah, Netflix taking away weekly episodes in favor of their batch episodes, which is basically the majority of Netflix shows whatsoever, even sometimes in Netflix exclusive anime, that is the worst thing they could have done. But in all seriousness, I could actually be surprised too for the fact that the next set of episodes is going to be releasing later this year, which yeah, does caught me off by surprise. I honestly expected it to be like around, I don't know, summer or like immediately when they just dropped the announcement. But honestly, what I did is that I tend to like actually think about it, which I feel like the entire JoJo community sort of like overlook a little bit or just never really brought up. This is actually kind of a good thing for like the episode's quality themselves, considering for the fact that having that release date would probably give them enough time to actually polish out the episodes to make them look clean as hell. And as we see in the previews, the anime looks pretty decent. It actually looks very promising within its quality. And guess what? This actually does tie with Shuck's argument, saying that, yeah, if you're basically complaining that if Stone Ocean felt rushed due to the animation quality itself, then we're probably going to see less CGI assets, such as more 2D Sakuga, which I feel like the entire JoJo fanbase should actually consider instead of just ranting on Mappa like if they just cancel the series. So, Shuck, if you were about to make like a video about the second batch release date, you would probably actually consider this as a pro for this exact reason. And I also like to point out that Attack on Titan is doing the same thing as Stone Ocean. Ever since Season 3, the season has split up into 2 parts with 12 episodes, and the 4th/final season is doing the exact same thing, splitting up into 3 parts yearly. And while the Attack on Titan fanbase, I heard, definitely agreed that these could have been just separate seasons, I mean, let's face it, the final season isn't really a final season. It has other parts, which could be as separate seasons as whole. They just laughed it up and enjoyed the anime as it is. And I not only showed this Virgin Chad Attack on Titan meme in the video simply because for jokes, it's a valid point that Mappa did actually improve their quality since their first part. Heck, it could be the same thing for JoJo. The more time given, the better the quality.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself. I have 2 pieces of paper saying that's true.
So in conclusion, Shuckmeister, just because you're studying in a master's degree, it doesn't really mean that you aren't immune to criticism, nor that you can be acknowledged. As for your Netflix Rush video, while there are some points that I really acknowledged, I feel like, again, you could have explained it a bit more. Again, I don't know if this is due to time constraints or if it's some other reason. I honestly respect you as a creator, and I honestly respect your approaches to your opinions on your Stone Ocean anime. I'm just making the video just to give you some valid criticism. I'm not making this video to end your channel or end your career, by the way. And as for the entire JoJo community, I could care less about how you watch the JoJo anime, whether if you like binge watching or basically watching it weekly. At the end of the day, there's obviously still going to be more JoJo. Netflix hasn't really done anything terrible to the anime itself. They never really canceled it in favor of more Big Mouth. They never really deviated the source material again. So to sum it all up, I feel like while there are some aspects in the first 12 episodes that have been rushed, I feel like David Productions' execution of it was brilliant, and it turns out to be a really standard episode batch. And honestly, I could really look forward to like the improvement of the quality as we get to the second one. And thank you guys so much for watching, and as what Shuckmeister would say, have a beautiful Dwang.
Weekly episodes. Weekly episodes.